Okay, hi. This time is going to be a little bit less formal and more ad hoc and more in situ. Can you say?
Literally.
So yeah, we are literally in the Mortorino, and just behind us on the both sides we have the crypts. So, as we didn't have time to go home and change, I just washed my hair, so we were going to have like mm, I'd say, transmission from the site. It's been how much, like 10 days that we are here. We started, we had like 1 week of field school in a crypt, and now we're like at the last phases, finishing. We cover one of the crypts now, and we're about to cover the next one. We are organizing the findings that we have from here and generally closing everything slowly. And yeah, it was a very intensive period, but I think we are very happy with the results, although it was completely unexpected.
Yeah, this excavation was not supposed to be an excavation. This field school was organized as a osteological field school to work on commingled remains that should have come out from the crypts that are contained under the soil, under the pavement of this beautiful structure that we will show you in a minute. This structure is called the Mortorino, which means like the little deads in Italian. And we are in northern Italy, in San Fiorano, which is a very, very small town with 1,900 inhabitants. And this is in the Po Valley, which is the biggest valley in Italy and specifically in northern Italy. We are surrounded just by fields, and we are very close to some important rivers like the River Po, which is the longest and the biggest in Italy. Building is not so disturbing for you. This place, the Mortorino, has been object of the objective of a campaign to preserve the beautiful paintings that you can see behind me. So this place, which is a structure has four porches, a quadrangular structure with the porches, has been decorated with a lot of frescoes, and these frescoes have started to deteriorate with time.
That you can see behind.
So I was saying that the objective of the main goal of this campaign is to preserve the paintings that you see behind me. As you can see, some parts of the painting have already detached and lost their color. And so it's an urgent intervention they have to make in order to stop the deterioration and possibly preserve or reinvigorate the colors of these paintings. In a few minutes, we will try to show you the structure just to give you an idea of what the place looks like and where the crypts are located. But yes, we are in northern Italy. We are surrounded by fields, and in this context, we are working in a former cemetery. So this where we are sitting right now, where we're having this field school, where we had this field school, is a former cemetery that was used only during the 18th century and the very beginning of the 19th century, because after that, Napoleon, the emperor, decided to close all the cemeteries that were inside the towns, inside the city, and and to move them all outside of the inhabited places. So this became the old cemetery and has been abandoned and has been used for other purposes until very recent years. And now we are here in order to extract the people that are still in the crypts behind this cemetery and to do anthropological analysis on this remain.
Yeah, the thing is, the main goal was basically to empty the crypts in order to make a restoration and to dry it. And in this case, what is like not very common in archaeological context, we have some very precise data, because even we have curving and curve the date 1776 on one of the walls, so we could tell very precisely. And also, like, very soon we start having some findings that are also like quite helpful in this age estimation. So the goal was basically to empty the crypts that we thought, for at least what we could see during our visits, that is going to be just very mixed remains, totally without any connection, like typical ossuary, and that it will be just cleaning out everything. But it turns out to be like real archaeological excavation, because behind these first layers of mixed bones, there we found like so many individuals in such a insane order, so mixed that we had to get a pretty different approach.
So maybe I can grab my phone and show around the structure where we are, so that we can locate a little bit, understand the kind of structure that we're working in. And also because it's a very beautiful structure, I will start showing you from outside and then from inside, and giving you some historical information regarding this place. This is the structure. Now you should see it a little bit better. This is the Mortorino, which is a quadrangular structure I was telling before, with all these arches, all these porches here. And this is the entrance to the north. As you can see, every wall has been decorated with paintings, but now most of the paintings have been damaged, as you can see here. Some part of the painting have been damaged very much, and all the bottom of the painting has disappeared. So we actually don't have any of the bottom part of the painting, except for the crypt where Nataša is located. Some of the paintings you can see are still very well preserved, and the colors and the images are of a very. He decided to invest money and effort to restore it, to protect this kind of paintings, because this Via Crucis, which is like the different steps of the suffering of Jesus Christ till his death, has been considered of a high value, because it's the only local example of this kind of religious painting in a chapel. Here you can see the different stages of the Via Crucis, and this is the complete structure. The church that is behind here is the main church of San Fiorano, which also was a burial for people. So people were buried inside this church at the beginning, and crypts underneath the floor. They have 10 crypts filled with human remains, a field for burying individuals, because the church was already too crowded with tombs and with burials, and all the region around the church was also too crowded. So they asked to have a new field where they could have buried people, and this field was given to the population. Then, like 70 years later, we have this structure. In 1766, they built the crypts that you can see here. Here is one of the open crypts. There is one other, and other, for a total of 6 crypts that are open under these porches. And 1 year after, in 1767, they painted the Via Crucis. As I told before, this was a very short time of usage of the Mortorino, because only 40 years later, Napoleon ordered to close every cemetery in the town and to move it outside the town for hygienic reasons. So this is the structure where we are working. I will show you something more later. So as we told, we had the idea from our first exploration of this crypt that the crypts were secondary burials for the people that have been interred, that have been buried inside these garden. So now it's a garden, but it was the cemetery before. It was just a field with burials, and then they built the structure around, and then they painted the Via Crucis a fresco all around. So we expected, from what we have seen from previous visits to the crypts, we expected to have some commingled remains inside, so just a huge amount of fragmented or dislocated bones that we could have collected very fast, and put onto tables. And then on the table, we should have separated them, sorting them into anatomical side and bone for.
Yeah, because crypts would usually be used as a secondary burial. And the main difference between primary and secondary is that primary is like where you bury the individual, they stay there. And without any posterior, there could be taphonomic changes, but normally like there is no human intervention in it. While the secondary burials means that you collect the remains, and usually due to lack of the space or changing the original use of that space, and you put it in another space. Very typically in when we talk about Christian burials, normally like all the individuals should be buried around the church. At some point, of course, church become like overly used, and then they need to make the space for a new dead. And then the old one would be normally moved to another space. One of the typical examples is Crypts of Paris, which at some point, like the old cemetery became overcrowded, and people were complaining how during the rains the bones would literally end up on the streets. So they decided to empty that old cemetery and put everything in a crypt. So crypts are catacombs, yeah. There's like underground chambers that usually like you have like a lot of mixed remains without a secondary use. Not always, of course, but most of the time. And this was what we saw when we were visiting this place. We saw just a lot of bones without any anatomical connection, or very few parts, maybe one hand or few vertebrae. So that was what we expected in the beginning.
We knew that there should have been some anatomically connected individuals because they were visible on the surface. They were deposed on. They were left on top of the bunch of other dislocated bones, but we couldn't have imagined what was going underneath. So it was only when we started the field school, when we actually started the collection of the topsoil, of the top layer of these crypts, that we, sorry, the bell is doing its job.
And again.
Okay, it's 6:30. Every 30 minutes we have the bell ringing to tell us the time, and it's pretty useful when you're down in the crypt and you cannot have your phone or your watch with you. So
there is no sun, there is no light, there is nothing.
There's nothing to tell you the day is passing except for the bells. So we expected to have just commingled and disarticulated remains, but when we started removing the top layer, the bones on the surface, and we started actually digging through the soil, we understood that we were facing a way more complex situation and a different type of burial. In this case, we started finding some articulated bodies, and not just the bodies in articulation, but also bodies inside or around fragments or what remains of their coffin. So this means that most of the people that we're excavating now were put into these crypts, into their coffins, and they have decomposed exactly where we are finding them. That's why we found so many articulated bodies, because they have not been moved since, and where they decomposed, they stayed. This is a primary burial, a primary deposition, as Nataša explained before.
Also, what is very interesting in this excavation, but what is also making it more complicated, is that it's not like, unlike normal archaeological excavation, here there's a lot of soft tissue preservation and preservation of those remains that we don't see normally in archaeology. So for that reason, how do we understand if there is a coffin or not? You can literally see it. Not only see it, but we took like so much of coffins, like so big pieces of wood. And that's the point about crypts. They are preserving some things that you will never see in archaeology, but they're like really affecting badly some like other elements. So, for example, like what we have normally in archaeology is that we have good preservation of the bones as a mineralized structure, and we are lacking everything else. So we don't have like soft tissues, and here is a completely reverse. Like most of the bones were in really bad level of preservation. Like you can see it, but the moment when you touch it, it just fall apart. And they were like so soft, so like the closest to preservation would be bug bodies. Now these famous bodies that were almost completely like visually seems like completely preserved from the swamps in England and Scandinavia. But actually, those are just the skin is perfectly preserved, the hair is perfectly preserved, but there is no bones at all inside of it. So something similar happened here. Of course, we have bones, but they're way worse. Their preservation is way worse than it would be normally in something especially so recent from archaeological point of view, like 18th century is quite recent. But we have excellent preservation of hair. We have nails, fingernails. That's something that I've outside the forensic context, I see for the first time. And we have a lot of hair, like incredible amounts of hairs, and like completely, like the whole scalp, basically. And this is something also like in the beginning, very shocking. So it's really resulting like having everything reverse. And for this reason as well, we had to act like almost like in forensic context because of so much. There was also mummified. Some remains were also mummified, and because of presence of soft tissue, presence of remains that in such a still like kind of putrefied preservation. But what is even more dangerous in this context, these wet conditions are so good for fungus. And actually, we had opportunity to see like the sticks that we're using to mark the parts of the trench we are opening. In 1 week, they become like full of fungus. The like, whole new life is starting there. And this is something that if you spend more time there, this is what you're breathing, the spores of these fungus. So for that reason, basically our excavation was very much resembling the forensic excavation. So we would use the full suits, as Roberto is going to demonstrate. And we had to have masks, gloves, also like the shoe covers. And at the end, we also, because it's underground structure, we have to have helmets. And in Italian, 36 degrees right now, it's also like another complicated, something that is adding more to complexity of excavation. And also like it's also like you're not supposed to spend so much time in this kind of closed surroundings. And then that being like the entire week in one of those. Yeah, this is, you forgot your mask. And yes, this is the like full overall suit, gloves, mask, everything. And of course, crypts overall that the crypts are very humid, very humid atmosphere in it. So it's also like in the beginning, it's very hard to breathe. And So until we didn't get used to it, it was like really a little bit claustrophobic as well. Yeah, that's a proper way to do it.
So this is how we have been working, especially when we were inside the crypts for a safety reason, and it was really needed because I think I bumped my hair against my head against the wall of the crypt at least 70 times. So fortunately, we had a helmet for everybody who was working into the crypts, face mask for protecting us from molds and spores, and of course the coverall to protect at least from the dust, the most disgusting parts of the decomposition process that you can come in touch with.
Yeah, and I'm sure the snail poop on me.
Yeah, and also the snails. We have a lot of snails.
Yeah.
So maybe since I'm dressed, I can take my phone closer to one of the crypt and I can try to show you how is the situation inside of the crypt. Okay, now I will try to show you just from the top of this crypt, how is it the life inside. So maybe Victoria, can you help me with the stairs, please? This is Victoria, one of the students from our school. She's from Denmark, from Copenhagen. You can see here, this is the only part that we have been excavating during this week. And you can see the remains of the coffins. This is just one of the 4 crypts that we wanted to excavate. As you can see, you have all the remains of the coffin here and here. All these wooden planks are coffin. And we know that they are coffin because we actually find people inside. And also because of their structure, we can clearly identify the edges of the coffin and how they were all the different pieces were connecting between them, and we have the individuals inside. On the other side of the crypt, you have the situation before the dig. So the top part of the crypt was like this. And you can see that there are scattered remains on the surface that apparently lack anatomical position, and lots of wooden planks that are the bottom or the top or of the coffin. In some cases, you can see some articulation between these remains. Like here, we have a tibia with a foot connected to it. So we know that this is a coffin with an intact individual inside, because we can see one part of its body which is in anatomical position. So this means that this body has decomposed exactly here where it has been left centuries ago. Okay, I will try now to show you some of the findings that we found inside the crypts, especially the biological findings, like the mummified hair, some pieces of tissue. As you can see here, we have a bag which is completely full of hair, some wood. This is wood, the wood coming from the coffin. There is preserved fabric on top of it. These black pieces are fabric that has been preserved. And within it, there is also this big bunch of hair. So this looks like a wig totally. And as you can see, it has perfect braids. The quality of the hair, the quality of the braids is still so good, and it's surprising to find this big amount of hair. And you basically reconstruct the hairdo of this individual. Mixed with this, there are also beads, sometimes, especially bronze beads from a rosary and fabric threads that they were used to keep the braids together. So this is another individual, another big mass of hair. We will sample all of this hair in order to send some sample for further analysis. This is one of the most interesting findings that we had. It is a semi-spherical object, pretty soft, and this was found inside the skull of an individual. That's why we think that this could be some preserved or mummified brain, because it was found inside the skull, and the skull was intact before. And so probably these are the tissues from the brain, from the encephalus of this individual that were somehow preserved. As we mentioned, there are other biological findings. I will try to show you some, because we also had fingernails preserved. Like this one is the fingernail from an individual of the crypt. Maybe you can see that it has a curved shape. And also some other organic material that we found is fabric. Like in this case, we have these fabric objects that were found in association with some of the individuals. And these are probably some scapulars that were some kind of religious decoration with saint images inside, and they were worn around the neck of the person, like rosaries. In this case, you can see all the beads. Some religious medals. This is another fingernail. This is it's a metal cross.
Okay, so yeah, you had the opportunity to see some of the objects. Maybe you can show also some others before you remove. Yeah, okay.
Maybe the modern ones.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really cute because we found a lot of modern findings, very 20th century ones. Because as we found out later, talking with the people from this community, the Mortorino as a place was very important for them, and there was a lady that was coming here until very recently, bringing candles, and also they were bringing kids to play here, which is maybe sounds a little bit weird, but in Italy, relation towards that is quite different. And as you probably know, there's a lot of churches made of bones, relics, and also in the same way, like the relation with death is very close. And it was nowadays might sound very weird, but actually they would bring kids to play. And so we found a lot of toys that those kids were using, although all these crypts were covered with very, very heavy covers and made of stone. But there's slight holes, and obviously they would throw their toys inside of those holes. And it was very, in one hand, it was very touchy to find this object, and also like it was really nice to see how this connection with this place existed and it still exists. And actually, like even although it's not some just object or structure made in 18th century, but it's something that is still in use, and not only just for not anymore for obviously for burials, but it continue be in use as a place for worshipping, as a place for playing, as a place for visiting. So, and really during these weeks that we stay here, we had so much visit from locals. That was also like we even have one lady that brought us a cake. So this is really cute because and really nice to have such a big support from a local community and to know that people really care about this place and well, which could I hopefully guarantee us continuation of this project.
So here is a piece of a modern toy, possibly the head of some kind of doll or some kind of other toy from the young kids. Then we have the two cutest toys that we found. A mini gun, a pink gun.
That's
And
my favorite.
that one is our favorite. Yeah. It's a minuscule dog. You see? It's a minuscule plastic dog that was found inside one of the crypt in one of the top layers. As long as many marbles, some of them are glass marbles, like this one, which green in color. The other one are made of marble, made of stone, and we found a lot of them. So we have
This is a
the
photo of actually children inside of Mortorino with their teacher. So this was when it was made in like
yeah, like
60s, maybe 50s.
in the 60s
So
and 70s, this place was used as a playground for the children that were in the next school, like really next door there was a school run by nuns. And this was used as a playground during their recreation time. So they were coming here, they were playing in the sand that was put in one side, in this very side of this very corner of the Mortorino. And then they were also interested in these pits, in these crypts that were underneath their feet. And so local people that studied here, that was young here, uh, told us that they used to throw some stones or some marbles inside of the crypts. There was one crypt that was constantly filled with water, and so they were throwing stones in order to listen to the sploosh that it made into the water when it fell. So they have a connection with this place that is more than just artistic or cultural connection. They really spent their young years, their pre-adolescence here in this place. They were playing here, they were living this space. And that's why we also received so many visits during these days of the field school, because all the local people were interested in seeing what was going on with these crypts, seeing how were the individuals that came out, how their hair were preserved. So they were really curious and they were really interested in what was going on with this place that is a place for of their heart, of their youth.
yeah. And I have to say, like, I really underestimated the place because first we thought that it's going to be basically, as Roberto said, just emptying the crypt and being like a good opportunity for a theological course, and that we are just going to have a lot of commingled remains and that it will be mostly about that. But it turns out to be like much more interesting than that. And although from archaeological point of view, 18th century sounds like it was something from yesterday, at the end, it told us so many interesting stories. And actually, although we thought that we have all archaeological records from that period, from all historical records from that period, actually it turns out that we don't know so many things. And finding this kind of private objects, something very intimate, or finding remains of hair or nails or brain even, that was something like that was completely unexpected on one hand. but also opening like a lot of possibilities for some further research and kind of research that we can't have normally in archaeology. So we are planning to do isotopes on the hair, and in this way, hair is very important because it's telling you the diet of last few months of life. So we could compare it with the previous years. Like if you have teeth, for example, teeth are the capsules on time, and they're saving isotopic signal of the diet that this individual had in childhood. So we can compare it with the last months of life, and if we have bones, long bones, normally femurs is saving the signal from last 10 years of life. Like that, we can cover like their childhood, their last adult years, and their few last months of life. So we can have like really complete picture. Also, we are planning to a collaboration with the University of Vancouver and in terms of having the parasites analysis from the hair, so analyze of lice, and we even have some pubic hair. So, yeah, hope we won't have parasite on that one, but
I hope
you
not.
never know. But what was also very, very interesting in this case is that at least in a crypt that we excavated the most up to now, is that almost all of them were females, and we had so much religious objects for doing their job.
It's 7.
All right. And actually, like the as you could see, the hair, and also the way how it's the hairstyle that was used, then the textile that we found, so many individuals with rosary, almost like all of them, very similar types of like there's like or metal or wooden ones. Then all this textile that was in use, like both for some sort of pillows that should hold the head, but also the textile that was probably dress or rope. We find a lot of religious medallion, one possible relics. So all of this is pointing that we very likely have nuns or some other female religious community, and that is something. What's this extra?
Yeah, maybe calling for the mass. This is the place where we are sifting all the soil that is coming out of the. This one is one of the tables that we're using for separating and identifying the commingled remains coming from the different crypts. Commingled remains being separated, and these are non-adult individual that we recently find.
Yeah, but as I was saying that it's everything is pointing that this is probably nuns or some other female religions community, at least in crypt number 3. We have 4 crypt with human remains. And but this is something that we didn't find in any historical sources. So again, even if we think that we are digging something that is very recent and very well covered from a historical point of view, actually it turns out that we are missing a lot of information and that a lot of things can be found out. So at least this is a situation for one of them. So turns out to be much more interesting than we expected, but turns out to be way more complex. And basically, I spent like 8 days in just 2 quadrants that are like 1 and 10, 1 meter 10, no?
Yeah.
And the another problem is that there's so many individuals in such a small space, and they didn't respect at all any rules about burials. So they're overlapping in the craziest way you can imagine. And also like they're like the preservation probably when coffins start collapsing is also not helping because we have like different parts of individuals in an atomic position, but they might be quite far from each other, and they're also cutting each other a lot. So one burial is cutting another, is cutting another. So at one point it was Mikado, like you don't know where to start, which part to remove, and it's far away from what we thought that it's going to be just secondary burials removing the remains. And in such a short period of time, we had like so many very, very intense burials. And in Crypt 2, we had like one zone with a lot of non-adults all of a sudden. So again, it seems it's possible that maybe they had part of the crypts or one crypt just for religious women or a religious community, another part for non-adults. And for now, we didn't have so much of pathological findings, but we're still working on it. But there was some interesting findings like Klippel field, which is genetical malformation in the neck, meaning that this individual is like it's called also short neck syndrome. Meaning that this individual actually couldn't really properly move the neck, and that's giving this visually like neck much shorter, but is giving a lot of other types of problem, such as because it's also compressing nerves. It can also lead to some individuals has heart problems, others are blind, deaf, or have some like partial paralysis. Of course, we cannot see this because we don't have nerve preserves, but it's more than just a visual or aesthetic problem. It's giving much bigger range of problems. And again, it could be just
Right.
random. When I was doing my PhD, I also had like I was working with nuns, and there was also an individual with the same syndrome. Because of course, like in the past, before having the hospitals, before having geriatric centers, before having this system that there would be people with some sort of deformities, disabilities, where they could actually, like people who couldn't take care of themselves, or being with these kind of problems that maybe prevent them of having children, or being like like having like easy being able to give easy birth if they're females. They would usually be placed in monasteries. So this is also like in my community that I was working with, that the of nuns, like almost all of, not all, but there was such a big percentage of females with rickets, with this kind of congenital deformities, early childhood traumas that resulted in problems with motoric problems, problems with walking, problems with like some sort of mobility, or very aesthetically affecting problems.
So these are just some of the questions that were raised during this short field school. We didn't expect to have so many questions and answered. We were expecting to give some answers actually to some other questions, and this will be the objective of our future studies. What we ideally wanted to do, and it's still one of the objective of our investigation, of our research. Oh, look, we have the Klippel fail vertebra. Okay, this is vertebra number 2 the axis fused with the body of vertebra number 3. More than a fusion, it's a non-separation.
Yeah,
So
that's a big difference, because osteoarthrosis can provoke fusion of the bones, but it's usually happen in an advanced age, and you could see that actually those two elements were once separated, and then with the time they are becoming ossified, and this person would lose ability to move the neck easily. But in this case, we can see that they've never been separated. They're making one big piece, and there is no signs of ossification. It's simply like this person is born that way.
And so, as I was saying, the main objective when we deal with crypts, or in general with commingled remains, is at least to reconstruct which is the minimal number of individuals represented by the remains that we get. In order to do this, as you have seen on the tables, we divide all the bone and bone fragments that we can identify by anatomical region of the body, and then by bone, and then by side. So we identify which fragments or which bones belong to the upper limb, the lower limb, the pelvic girdle, the scapular girdle, the vertebral spine, the skull. And then inside these regions, we try to separate all the humeri fragments, all the radii, all the ulnae, all the femur, all the tibia, and so on, and then try to distinguish which is left and which is right for all of these fragments. Why do we do this? Because then, just by counting the number of fragments or intact bone that we have, we can estimate the minimum number of individuals. Because if I have 10 left femori, we must at least have 10 people represented. Maybe they can be much more than this, but at least it will be 10 individuals to provide 10 different left femori. So identifying each bone, identifying each side of the bone is a very challenging task. And this was the original objective of this field school and of this research. We will be still doing this, but on top of that, we had so many individuals. I think we got 61. to 61 individuals, and or parts of individuals, at least some parts of the body that were articulated, that they were excavated as if they were an individual. And so this will also take us a lot of time for the anthropological analysis for these body parts or for these complete individuals. So really interesting.
Samples we have?
Oh, we had more than 800 findings collected in just a few square meters. So every piece of mummified hair, every of mummified skin, every hair or a group of hairs, every piece of fabric, every piece of metal, everything was collected, and we got with our count to more than 800 findings that were collected. Some of them are just objects that will be possibly given to a restorator in order to clean them, in order to tell us some more about these objects. But other are samples that we will send, as Nataša said, to different universities that we collaborate with in order to have some more analysis and some more detailed information about these people.
We had some questions that we didn't answer. Yeah, how do you preserve the bones, as they seems to be very fragile? Similar case we have here. We excavated bones from the 11th, 12th century. They were very, very fragile. Well, luckily, not all of them are fragile. The worst actually preservation was the one that were in coffins. Because there is some on the top that were outside of coffins that were just scattered. And these were quite well preserved because they were probably very dry. And then it's coming the layer where all the coffins were and the individuals in the coffin. And this was really, like, preservation is really bad. Probably because the wood is keeping the humidity. And it's also like such a big amount of bones are also like of the coffins and the bones and everything. It's creating anaerobic system. So there is no, but on one hand, it's extremely humid, and on the other hand, it's anaerobic. So as I said before, it's function pretty much as a bog bodies, like a swamp. So in this part, the bones were really in the worst level of preservation. And many times you can see the bone, but the moment when you try to take it, it just disappeared. And in this case, we were trying to record everything that we could see in situ, and then knowing that they will probably not last. They also have specific color. They're like completely black. Again, taking color of the coffins, which made everything even worse, more complicated to excavate because, of course, we are working with artificial lights. So we have this, like we made like lights with long cables and everything, but still it's not as good as this light that we have right now. And everything is the same color, the soil, the bones, the coffins. And as the coffins collapsed, they were like literally glued to the bones, which made again like very, very complicated because like you try to remove the coffin, but in the same time, you're trying not to remove bones. And they all make like the layers of the same sort of material. And also the wood has lost its original texture and becomes literally butter-like. And the same comes with bones. So in this case, like in many bones, unfortunately, won't be able to recover. But on the other hand, this kind of surrounding helps us preserve other organic material. And so we hope that we'll have like good preservation enough to maybe do some DNA analysis and also to be able to obtain more information about this individual because, okay, maybe we don't have bones, but we have hair, we have nails, so we will be able to tell more about individuals. And then coming one layer that is below the coffins, that is more like a sandy kind of soil, and lucky for us, these bones are again well preserved. So the worst one was in this middle part, and then there again we can have some very good preservation. But even in this kind of soil where you maybe like you have like a big femur that just fall apart, and then you have some unexpectedly well preservation of fetal bones. So we have like the 24 weeks old fetus that is extremely well preserved. And again, like doesn't make a lot of logic, but it's we have to count on it. Something will be extremely well preserved. Some other things will be extremely bad preserved. But anything we can say more about these people is something that we can add extra. So yeah.
But for the bones that are not in good condition, the bones that are very fragile, very crumbly, we are not applying particular techniques in order to stabilize them, in order to excavate them and to transport them, because it would be too much for this kind of assemblage of bones. So we are just accepting the fact that some of the bone will be very crumbly, some will disintegrate, especially not just because of the humidity and acidity condition, but also because of mineral crystals that are forming inside the bones and that are taking tearing the bones apart. We think they are potassium nitrate crystals which are typical in humid and underground environments, like some kind of basements or old parts of the house that are underground. So these kind of crystals are growing inside the bone, and they're basically destroying all the structure of the bone. So when you touch this part of the bone that has been damaged by crystal or by humidity or by acidity, you know that you're gonna lose it. Applying resins or applying other kind of preservation material to keep the bone intact would be too much for in terms of time, of money involved, and in terms of also of materials, because we are dealing with several hundreds probably of individuals. So We're just accepting that some of the bones will be lost, and that's why we try to document everything with picture before taking them out. I started with the documentation of the crypts in their original state through photogrammetry. So I placed some markers in the crypts in order to help me have a photogrammetry reconstruction of the crypts with some detailed photo. And then for every individual, before lifting the individual, we try to take some pictures of the individual as it is. So if we manage to excavate, to dig around the individual pretty nicely, the shape will be visible. Some measurements can also be taken from the picture. And then if the bone disintegrate when we take it outside, there is nothing in this situation with these funds that we have, with this condition that we're working in. There's nothing that we can do for that. So we just accept that part of the bone will be broken, will be damaged. But still, even with fragments, even with some tiny parts of the individual surviving, so many analyses can be accessible, and also we can still get to the identification, to the calculation of the minimum number of individuals. So we are not losing so much information, even if we lose some parts of the bone.
Also, we opened the crypts like days before we started, actually, to make it dry a little bit in a shade, in natural conditions, in still stable temperature. And every individual that we take out, we try to take it in a block, like entirely, to lose as much as less as possible of information. And we are letting it dry in a shadow, in like slowly. So like that, we hope that we will like lose less information, because they are like, once when they get dry, maybe we probably will have like a little bit better structure and better consolidation. And there is another question on like often crypts are associated with holes dug into the wall, but this is not the case. Why we're left in the bottom of
yeah, and this question also goes together with another one by Bernadette that asks how deep are the crypts? Were the coffin deposited in an organized manner, or one on top of the other?
Yeah.
So there were no holes in the walls. The walls are very flat, and also the crypts are very small. It's just a 2 meter by 3 meter, more or less.
Yeah, but the crypts are generally like underground structure, chambers. So they can be sometimes in the wall, but most of the times they're actually under the ground. And they're like
without any structure in the wall to
there was no
position of the
any kind of structure that will keep them. And the coffins are completely chaotically organized. Like there is basically no organization at all. We are thinking also that they might fall, that they were maybe piled and then just fall down, because we have found a lot of people in the coffins face down in prone position, which of course is not something that's very common. While the individual that were in the soil, buried in the soil, like the lowest lower level, the one where the sand is starting, they were all in a supine position, like. But even then, they were not following normal Christian burial right, where you should be buried face towards like in a laying down extended position. Hands can be here or like on the stomach, but you should be faced toward east, because this is where like a resurrection of like this is where Jesus Christ should come on the judgment day. So this is why always on Christian religions that this should be orientation east to west when it had toward the east. But they didn't respect this at all, and it's very like overlapping. We didn't find any line up to now.
No.
So probably that's not they were not buried there in a rush or thrown them in a rush or in danger of some sort of infection, when lime is usually used as a sort of disinfectant. But yeah, there was like and the depth of the crypt.
It's not possible to measure accurately the depth right now because the crypts are not empty and we didn't reach the bottom. So probably in just one crypt we are getting closer to the bottom because we saw some soil changes, but we don't know actually where the bottom of the crypt is, and we don't know if the all of the four crypts that we are gonna excavate will be the same depth. We think that it could be the case because they look very similar to each other in size and dimensions, but we still didn't reach the bottom, so we can only speculate by now. I have some pictures taken from for the photogrammetry that show one corner of crypt number 2 that could possibly be the bottom of the crypt, which is kind of empty. And so when I will reconstruct the photogrammetry and the 3D model, then I can take some measurements based on this corner. But until we finish all the work, we cannot know exactly the depth of the crypt.
And they're like half full, most of them, right?
Yes, yes. Some are more empty, some are very, very full.
Yeah, we kind of respond on this one about the examination of the testing of the hair. So yes, we will definitely do that. Um, how do we know it's modern? We literally have the date written on the wall. We have historical uh, data regarding this, and we know.
Maybe she was referring to modern object, like a contemporary object. So like
Uh-huh.
well, in this case, some of the objects were made of plastic.
Yeah.
So this is very modern.
And also industrially made, so we can know that it's but the crypt itself, yeah, we know when when it started to be used. We have some plates on the entrance that are referring to few of the people that were buried there. There is a mentioning pilgrims. We have curved date on one of the walls, and we know when when it stopped being in use, because we know when that Napoleon forbid burning inside of the city. So we know the date when it started being in use. We know the date when it stopped being in use. So basically, in this sense, also we are we're lucky because it's something that in archaeology we usually don't find. And also, like, a lot of the findings are also helping in this way, because we can see like where they could be produced or what they're representing. And also we have some money, but unfortunately it's not readable yet.
Except for the contemporary money.
Yeah.
The
Liras.
liras, yes, they were very recent after the 1920s.
Yeah, there is a question like, what type of fabric is best preserved in space, such as crypt or graves? Plant fibers such as cotton, or animal fibers such as wool? And how that affect the bones preservation?
That's a good question. I cannot distinguish the type of fabric just by seeing it, and also we didn't analyze this object so far. We just saw them. We pegged them, but then there was so much work that we didn't have time to pay attention to the artifacts. So I will not be able to recognize cotton from wool. I don't know you. But I think it's a question for an expert, like a restorator or someone that is expert in treating ancient textiles, ancient fabric, and uh, and tell us the difference between one and the other, and then we will be able to respond, to answer this question. Uh, if I have to invent an answer, like an educated guess, I guess that since we see a lot of hair and a lot of nails, which are made of keratin, probably wool would be another kind of tissue that could be very well preserved because it's also made of keratin. It's basically the hair of animals. While cotton, which is pure cellulose, and it's so easily digestible by bacteria, probably the same bacteria and fungi that are feeding on the wood, which also contains cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin. Probably these other materials could be more easily destroyed. But this isn't sad because we also found some pieces of paper that have been preserved. And so like a very tiny piece of paper inside a relic or some pieces of paper of possibly a holy book. And so if paper can still survive, we don't exclude that also cotton could be surviving as well.
Yeah, and we have some leather as well. Leather can be also very well preserved in this kind of conditions because it's again it's very thick leather and it's anaerobic conditions, so this can also be very helpful. But yeah, we need somebody more more of an expert. Um, Basically, this it didn't have a lot of effect on bones preservation, the object that we found, but coffins definitely they did because they were keeping more the humidity. And we could see like literally everything that was close to the coffins was in a worse state of preservation than those bones that were little bit more away from it. I guess that also like fabrics are keeping more humidity, and in that case, they are more probably they could affect in a like bad way the bones, but not as much as the wood. Wood was still like so wet, and also there's a like a underground river that is passing that is keep this humidity constant, and wood act as a sponge in this case, so it doesn't allow bones to dry, and so that's why this was I think the um, main factor in a bad preservation of the bone.
Yeah, also the fact that wood can contain the composition of wood will liberate the lignin, and lignin contains tannic acids and other organic substances that can affect the composition because maybe they can inhibit bacterial growth, they can inhibit microbial metabolism. And so maybe an excess of wood deposited into the soil uh, actually acted as a preservant in some way because it preserved some of this tissue that didn't decompose because of the high presence of wood, and maybe they changed the pH of the soil based on all the acids that they released during the decomposition of lignin.
Would you like to add something else?
No, just that we are very curious to know how this excavation will continue, hopefully next year, hopefully with other field school that could be organized in this place, because we don't have a lot of time. We have to hurry up for cleaning this crypt and make it possible for the crypts to dry out and be treated for the restoration of the paintings. But at the same time, we know that we have an immense amount of work in ahead of us. So we really hope that through some future field school, we will be able to keep digging into this very interesting context, which is very challenging, but has a lot of surprises. And so, who knows, maybe next year we will have some other field school running here, and maybe who knows, you can be part of that of this field school. So let's stay in touch. Okay,
Is that all?
I think it is.
Ta-ta. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, Victoria, for being invisible helper, but actually great help. And she's still working here, as you maybe notice. And thank you so much. This was very ad hoc. I'm sorry for some internet problems, but yeah, it is how it is. Archaeology is all about improvisation, adaptation, and um, overgrowing the problems.
We have been so glad to have taken you on this field trip. So you have the possibility to visit first person these crypts, and we're glad that you have been with us for this seminar.
See you next second Tuesday of the month. See you in September. Bye bye.
Bye.